Oedipus and the Gorgon, an excerpt from The Wretched Psalter by Caleb W.H. All of my works are in the public domain. Feel free to rework, reuse, and remix any ideas that you find within. After all, theological knowledge should be free. Oedipus and the Gorgon, an excerpt from The Wretched Psalter by Caleb W.H. There are many stories of love, some tragic, some sublime, some foolish. But Oedipus and the Gorgon is a love story of a different kind. It is not the fleeting passion of youthful romance, nor the poetic idealism of a bard's verse. This is a story of love as rebellion, love as sacrifice, and love as vision beyond the veil of vanity. Oedipus, a blind vagabond and a lover of wisdom, has walked the roads of kings and beggars alike. He has sat at the tables of philosophers and thieves, conversed with prophets and drunks, and seen the world in a way that those with sight could never fathom. He is a cynic, a fool for truth, and a seeker of the real. His eyes were not taken from him. He gave them up, tearing them from his face in an act of rebellion against the world's illusions. The Gorgon is a creature of legend, beautiful and terrifying, cursed and alone. She is a monster in the eyes of men, feared for her gaze, which turns to stone all who look upon her. But beneath the curse is something deeper, a soul longing for communion, for touch, for love untainted by fear. For all her power, she is vulnerable, trapped in the darkness of her cave, knowing only betrayal and solitude. This is a story about the meeting of two outcasts, two exiles from the world of men. One has lost his eyes to see beyond illusion, the other has been made into a monster for daring to exist. Together they will walk the path of lovers, saints, and fools, toward a love that does not consume but empties, a love that does not enslave but liberates. This is Oedipus and the Gorgon. Psalm 37, Oedipus' Sonnet 1, Oedipus' Gorgon. Men think it impossible for a human to love his enemies, for enemies can hardly endure the sight of one another. Well then, shut your eyes. And now your enemy just looks like your neighbor. Soren Kierkegaard. Oedipus was cast from the village, for he was too much a cynic, a cosmopolitan. His blindfold soaked in the blood of his sockets. He tore out his own eyes, for he could not dare to see the world as the world sees itself. Vanitas, he declares, vanitas. These eyes were the takers of 700 wives. With these eyes he stole, raped, and pillaged. This globe we tread is stained with blood and gold, rotting beneath our feet. And so Oedipus, for his cynicism and apparent lunacy, was cast into the wilderness. Let the demons take him, they cried. In the cruelest, most excruciating irony, the demons took the city instead. As he walked the world with staff and lantern and blindfold upon his face, a case could be made that Oedipus could see far better than most. He stumbled into Solomon's court one day, ready to boast to Solomon of his cynicism, but what he found was a speech that silenced him. Everything under the sun is meaningless, said the king. My crown, my jewels, my kingdom, it's all for naught. To love is to love without partiality, says the Lord our God. Oedipus became a bride of God that day, for he had finally found a worth love sharing. Oedipus finally became a Rex, and so he walked, but walked differently. He came across a cave where petrified men stood encased like pagan gods, and a woman of snakes emerged. Her soul agonized in loneliness, for she loved as the world does, in a petrifying mania. The blood on her hands was proof enough, but fearing neither stone nor a weeping woman, nor letting his eyes feast on her form, he sat with her, cackling, and spoke of tales she'd never heard. Last I heard, he has lived his life with her, married a decade. But that is not what amazes me. His love was not wrapped in a veneer of gold. It was as Lady Justice, blind and almost painful. His love echoed the universe, for to be is to love. There is no man wiser than that humble cynic. My court speaks of Solomon's wisdom, but those empty sockets tell a different story. That love is the abyss staring back into you. The terrible truth the mad prophet feared is not terrible, but joyful. Oedipus' Gorgon, I envy you. The snakes have found a master, and she a lover, one that does not take, but gives. Their love in that cave somewhere, I wish it were heralded atop the temple. May the world know of those bloody holes in his face, and you, O pious reader, know that you are a cosmopolitan, for nations mean nothing in the face of the Lord. Know that even a vagrant in a cave is brought into being by the love of the Lord. And may that blind cynic, Oedipus, keep scrounging for the ideal. for so far his spoils are vast, and he may one day find the man, the maestro, and the artist who helps him love in that way. Psalm 51, Oedipus' Sonnet 2, Oedipus' Proposal. Oedipus walked that desert newly enlightened, for Solomon had bestowed him new eyes. The one he cut out were scanty compared to the ones the Lord had given him. He trod through the desert an angel, Christmastide before Christmastide existed. The desert chilled, crawling its way into his skin, until he came across a cave. The sun barely peeked out from behind the mountains. He was greeted outside Plato's cave by a woman who had looked at shadows all her life. A Gorgon, lonely and lifeless, for she loved as the world loves. And no marvel, of course the season hurt, because she refused to take on the love declared. Thus a dialogue ensued between a man with no eyes who could see and a woman with snakes for eyes, yet she was blind. "Ah, I see a fellow cynic. Have you come to the cave for such wisdom?" The Gorgon paused, taken aback by his calm demeanor. Her white snakes flared in her hair. "This is my cave, human. You're a cynic. What makes you think I'm one of those?" She spoke cautiously, yet still amused, not letting herself hope. Well, clearly, a woman of such stature wouldn't live in a cave unless in pursuit of the truth. She laughed almost cockily. Loneliness and lustful manipulation were all she knew, so she figured she would express that love. Luckily, Oedipus could see not as the world. He saw past her vanity. She began to speak again. "That's right," she said. "I am a woman of such stature," she said, thinking he referred to her form. "Very perceptive of you. I've walked a long while. The cities of Babylon, the temples of Judea, and the Gallic countryside. Mind if I take a seat?" She became at ease, dropping her hand from his shoulder. "Sit down. Tell me more about yourself. I like the idea of a blind man seeing all these places." "Not much to see, especially when the world maintains its vanity." She teased him again, trying to tempt. "I can only imagine you, poor thing, going to all these places sightless," he said seriously, with an inquisitive look. "Nay, I can see far better than those with sight." There was a pause, and as clouds and fog rolled in. "Oh? How do you see, blind man?" "For instance?" His blindfold stared into her soul. "I know you are a Gorgon, petrified in loneliness. I know you are no cynic. The world hates you, and you are merely wallowing in that hate. I've come to deliver a parcel far better than you have ever received." She tensed, scared at his clarity. "How? You are blind! How do you know I am a Gorgon?" She almost winced at being called out. She put her hand up to his face, lightly scratching the blindfold with her scaly hands, as if examining an artifact. "For reasons of two." He lightly nudged her hand away. "I've heard town musings of a monstrous woman in the woods. I've learned not to trust such rumors of outcasts. Secondly, I tore out my own eyes as a cynic. I was given eyes anew by the God of nations." The Gorgon stood there, shocked. Piety like that, seeing past vanity, giving up the pleasures of sight. She had heard of pious priests at the temples, but nothing like this. "You tore out your own eyes?" As if the universe applauded her shock, thunder clapped and roared, and the sky started to cry. Her pleasantries had been shocked, her notions abashed. She practically carried him in with her tail, wanting to bear witness to the anomaly. As a scientist of virtue, but an empiricist at best, she let him down a spiral cave into the bosom of its confines. Oedipus noticed the statues on the walls, men like Artemis and Apollo, statues littered around as if in storage. He knew exactly what they were. Yet Oedipus chose to see past them. As they walked, he made small comments. "Your tail must be pretty. It's smooth to the touch." The Gorgon, almost exasperated, asked, "Do humans have a fetish for Gorgon aesthetics?" Oedipus laughed. "Vain men, those are. I appreciate higher virtues, aesthetics being one of them." She snickered. "A man who isn't vain, even if you're blind, that I don't believe." Oedipus, the cynic he was, still had use for shelter. "Do you have food and a fire? Time for a silly cynic of the desert." She let out a long sigh. "Very well." As they walked into the cave, Oedipus asked, "It's quite moist in here. Are you taking me to one of those saunas the Greeks speak of?" She sighed, admittedly liking his jokes. "Hardly. We're going to a bedchamber." Oedipus, in a childlike manner, hopped around giddy, hardly a care. "Food and a fire, right?" A meek and unwanted smile spread across her face. Yes, food and a fire." He turned his head towards her. "It's the only thing I'll need." Just then they entered the chambers. The Gorgon helped him sit, treating him as if he were an elder. He sat on a soft surface, instantly knowing it was a bed. "Beats the ground," he quipped with a smile. She laughed, trying to suppress it, but the sound flowed out like a gushing waterfall. She couldn't contain herself any more. Her idol had been lit like Dionysus awakening revelry. She wanted to give herself to him. Little did she know, he was far from an idol, and eons removed from vanity. She slithered up to him like the serpent in the garden, her hand wrapping around his head as she brought her cheek close to his ear. In a whisper, laced with curiosity, she murmured, "I'm assuming you approve of this, then?" Oedipus, smiling like a fool for Christ, without a single carnal thought, only compassion, replied, "Your face is close," he said with childlike playfulness. "Is that a bad thing?" she asked, her voice low, sultry, deliberate. Oedipus laughed softly and said, "No, not necessarily, though it brings me to a question. Why truly have you led me down here?" His voice turned sober, as if belonging to a man who had seen this scenario 1,000 times before. "As a cynic, I admire honesty. No matter how foolish it may sound, tell me." Caught off guard, she stumbled into a lie. "I find your philosophy interesting. You're clearly insane. Tell me about your god." But her voice betrayed her, wavering at the edges like a thread about to snap. As if cutting through her deceit, he reached out and placed his hand among the snakes in her hair. Thoroughly flustered, her face turned red. "Say, do you have snakes up here?" he asked, his fingers brushing softly against them. "Why, yes," she replied, her stony heart melting into tar. Her snakes coiled around his hand, tempting, testing, teasing like Eve's for spite. He chuckled. "You know, these creatures are quite intriguing, wise and cunning, hardly evil, yet the adversary took their form. It's strange." "I'm familiar with the story," she murmured, her voice softer now, as if savoring the good wine from a celestial vineyard. The touch was all she wanted, and for now it was enough. Oedipus began his monologue again, dancing with his words as if they were the only music in the void. "If I may be so bold, you wouldn't place me in your bed if you weren't trying to court me." Her protest came quickly. "What?" "Well," he said with a sly grin, "you wouldn't bring me here if your intentions weren't vain." "I'm hardly vain," she countered, her snakes flaring in her hair like fire. Oedipus laughed, feigning ignorance. "Yes, of course." She sighed, the silence between them swelling like a storm. "I never got your name, blind man." "It's Oedipus. Do you wish to know my story?" "Do tell," she said, curiosity lighting her eyes. "I grew up in the city of Thebes, in Greece. Yes, I may be Greek, but I have long since dropped that label. When I was a teenager, I went to study under a sophist in Athens. That was the first time I had a sort of awakening after a failed relationship, my family abandoning me for choosing Athens, and my teacher expelling me from his school. I became a street urchin." He passed as if reliving the memory. "I then realized my first apocalypse, as I like to call it." "Do tell," the Gorgon urged, her voice softer now, intrigued by his candor. He touched his blindfold. "Vanitas, as the Romans would call it. These eyes, I realized, were just like the world's. They took 700 lives, stole, raped, and pillaged in the night. And I would rather die than see the world as the world sees itself. So I tore out my own eyes." She gasped, horrified. "You tore out your eyes? Why there? Why at a brothel?" "To rebel!" he exclaimed, jumping out of his seat. "To walk a cynical walk. I walked and walked until I found myself at Israel's gates. Somehow they let me into Solomon's quarters." He paused, his voice trembling with reverence, and what he began to say shook me to my very core. "What did he say?" she asked, her voice trembling, almost afraid of the answer. Oedipus took a deep breath. "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Everything under the sun is meaningless. To love is to love without partiality, says the Lord our God." He smiled faintly, and then I began to see far better than most. "Did you meet him? Your God?" The Gorgon's voice was soft, trembling with awe. "Yes," Oedipus said simply. She was stunned, her eyes filling with unshed tears. What was he like?" She almost was afraid of the answer, her mind imagining eldritch horrors of benign indifference. But Oedipus's voice cut through her fear. "Loving, and out of that love came the truth, and out of that truth came the good. Even now I can feel it, his love. It keeps every single person's matter from disintegrating, every single person alive and breathing, including you." The Gorgon sat in stunned silence, her heart wrestling with the apocalypse he presented. "He loves me?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. awe and disbelief warring within her. And that, Oedipus said, is the message that I bring to the world. She shook her head, trying to reconcile his words with her own self-loathing. He can't. No way. There is no way. Oedipus reached up, unwrapping his blindfold, revealing bloody, empty sockets. The abyss stared back into her soul, seeking to topple her broken gods of pleasure. He told me to love as the blind. The abyss in his face was warm, radiating a love so deep, so self-emptying, it left her speechless. What makes you exempt from that love? You are a crafted idea. God formed you from the void and made a beauty, fashioning you with snakes, creatures he loved. He sees the beautiful serpent in you, a fitting proclamation of the universe. Her tears flowed freely now, myrrh-like streams down her cheeks. She reached up, her hand trembling, and looked into the abyss of his love. The arrows that fashioned her and kept her alive now stared back at her through the form of an empty socket. I have no clue what these holes look like, but I'm glad you see past the vanity of their grotesqueness. They matter not, you still are beautiful, she echoed his defiant dance. Funny, I should say the same thing to you. His eyes now started unwrapping secrets. Don't think I didn't notice the statues you placed halfway down here. Fluster became her face. Those were men I loved in the past. Loneliness is a killer, isn't she? Oedipus mused. It drove me mad, blind one, she screamed, the dance causing a delirium. Oedipus laughed. Your beauty far outshines the Vestal Virgins of Dionysus. The dance continued. She became flustered, spoken like a passionate poet. She said with a pained smile, hardly, for even they are vain. He cupped her face. The dance came to a grinding halt. She pushed him. Do you know who I am? What I am? I'm a monster. The lyres filling their dialogue became unstrung. He stood dumbfounded and then laughed. You are not a part of monster. Men in the city of Athens, Gaul, and Persia, those make far better monsters. I don't care that you're a monster because you're not. My eyes see what truly matters. How can I believe you? He pointed to his eyes. Do these eyes lie? No, she said, bewildered. They don't. Oedipus was not lying. It was like he was emptying himself. He was pouring out his coffers in his wretched heart. He left the sin out to dry while expressing the love his God had shown him. Do you wish to sit by the fire? Completely bewildered, she'd accept anything. You're not cold, are you? Are you? If it's the cold you wish to sit, I will sit with you. If it's the warm embrace of a fire, I shall be there. You may, she said. Oedipus couldn't contain himself any more, beginning the tango anew. Cold-blooded, aren't you? If it's your body heat you wish to smother me with, I'm fine. I don't need it. You offered that, not me, Oedipus joked. She began to fall on her feet. Well, I figured you'd offer, so I just... The lyre plucked the wrong string. Just shut up and sit by the fire with me. Oedipus, admittedly enjoying himself, asked, I'm not going to offer unless you want me to. Why would I partake of an equal without their permission? She softened just a bit. The dance began, this time more intimate, with a Casanova's song still to come. I suppose you can offer. Oedipus, not taking a chance, not reaching up his fingers, merely stared into the firelight. His blood-soaked socket seemed to glisten. She eventually joined him, after a moment of silence. Then, there, are you finally comfortable? She said. My comfort means nothing. Yours means everything. Her taking a dip again, the harmony began to detune. She began to yell, Stop being so insufferably kind. You're making me feel things. Oedipus, without a single carnal thought in his head, began the dance again. Those are called passions. They can be sweet, but they can also have mastery over you. She listened, as if an artist's apprentice. They can be slavers, but my goal is to teach the world how to love in a self-emptying way. They make me feel so weak. They can do that. And maybe, Oedipus's heart opened, one day I can be loved in a self-emptying way. His eyes, for the first time, were given to loneliness. She looked at him, seeking a kindred spirit. The agony of Eros, the agony of loneliness in those abyssal eyes. That must be lonely. Oh, hardly, especially. He wrapped his arm around her. When one's loved can learn to love in that way. And thus the hell opens. That is played at least once in a person's life. A sweet, innocent passion. One she did not know how to tame. All she knew how to do was stare into the fire. As she melted, hardly a word could escape her lips. All of the passions came bubbling out to the surface. I think I understand, she muttered. And if your original impression of me was that I loved you like the world loves a woman, then you would be sorely mistaken. I would rather die than dehumanize you in such a way. The leaves could hardly stand it anymore. You love me? If you're asking like I love you like a rapist barbarian, then no. She began to cry. All of those statues were men who loved as fools. Yes, all of them. They did. So I made sure that the only approach they would make again was as a pile of stone. She hissed with more anger now, her voice holding, even more venom than before. Yes, every single disgusting one of them. They all came to treat me as if I was only a pretty face. They all treated me as if they were something they could have, something they could take. Oedipus reached over and cupped her face. That was not love. Of course it wasn't. You feigned a cynic when I first met you. Do you wish to know my definition? In tears, she muttered out, Go on. The choice to will the good of the other, a self-emptying, beautiful, melancholic, picturesque love. That is the love of my God, and a fire that is clothed in scars, with scarlet robes. That was the thing I cut my eyes out over. Remember the love which I had described? How do you know? He pointed to his eyes, matching her passion, bloody sockets. This is how I know. She went silent. The dance had ended for a third time, though the final movement would be the best. I had forgotten. Oedipus laughed. Then you are starting to learn. My blindfold meant nothing to you for those moments. How could you love like that? Well, to start, the snakes in your hair are just snakes, and you are just a woman. Then you're no better. A human first, Oedipus said. Rashad crumbled again. That is love? Yes, that is love, and his love, and the love I wish to emulate. You cut out your eyes over that. If I didn't, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Your passions wouldn't have let you? As they relished in that short melody, the rain seemed to create a humming white noise with the fire in an almost harmonious way, as if God echoed their symphony. Tell me, what would serve your good, and I will do it for you. Do you wish to be comfortable? To make me comfortable? She said, almost longing. Yes, you are lucky I'm charitable. The fire, it is very warm, she said, her comfort almost making her delirious. Good. In times like these, it's best to contemplate that love. Maybe not to contemplate, but to relish it. To relish love. The words felt like honey on her lips. Those words must really taste good, he laughed. You have a palate for words, unlike the world. They taste very good. I'm still processing. As they sat, there was almost a palpable tension. They wished to express the love to each other, but couldn't figure out exact ways to do it. For now, the love had been realized, though, and so they sat. What's your name? Oedipus was the first to break the session finale. Inanna. That's a funny name, a Mesopotamian goddess. If you know her name, you must be experienced. Experienced with what? Love. How much experience do you have with the language of love? Compared to the world, I'm a linguist. She laughed. She got the passions he threw. Her face became warm. In other words, very experienced, he said as he cupped her face. When I saw the fire Solomon's Aletheia showed me, he almost looked like a man, but he was a phantasm. Tell me, do you feel love as I have described? Yes, she said, smiling. Rivers of tears started flowing down her face. You have taken away the agonizing loneliness. Good. Just as he said that, he threw his arms around her. The magnum opus of the finale was going to begin. She buried her face in his bosom, laughing and crying. Oedipus began again. I'm so glad. That tender pain which I've longed for, the joy of another person's good. I can feel it more than ever. I see your eyes, Oedipus. Let me take on that Aletheia with you. That is love, that tender pain. The proposal is music to my ears. Oedipus also began to cry. The cries were like a violin sonnet. You truly wish to love as the blind, to love without partiality. Yes. Then would you be so vain as to kiss me? She shyly brought her hands up and kissed him. This kiss was a cremation, a sealing of a cynicism. They kissed for hours, never escalating to partake, vainly as the Athenian brothel. A kiss was the agony of Eros, a visage of the love of God, never partaking, certainly not as of a barbarian. Her tongue was a bow of a violin, striking the keys of his heart, and his hand nestled with the snakes in the field of her vanity. His passions were emptied in communion in that kiss. The kiss was a final tango, the ending chord to this song. Finally, to end this sonnet of sonnets, Oedipus cupped a snake from her hair, kissing the thing the world despised, as if a doll of God. I kiss the very thing the world hates, for I choose to love. Oedipus' words hurt even him. She echoed his love in turn. Let us be blind unto ages of ages. And so the two can be found in a cave somewhere. Oedipus nestled in her long tail, or Inanna singing him to sleep. They shall never partake, for their love already has. Ontologically they are wrought. Every time they kiss, every time they sit and laugh, and every time they love. Love is a blind man, and love is a Gorgon. Oedipus and his Gorgon, their love lives, maybe in a barrel, away from the world, but it lives nonetheless, as the God of the universe lives eternally. Amen. Psalm 109, Oedipus' Sonnet 3, The Exaltation of Inanna, a poem sung by Oedipus. Note from the author. These next two poems are more to be understood not as an addition to the story of Oedipus and the Gorgon, but more as a monologue pronouncing their love for each other. This was derived rather sublimely at the idea after praying to God in front of my bridegroom icon, repeating the words, annihilation in Christ. This is the idea that was revealed to me. I'll call it aletheia. You can call it what you wish. In my annihilation, I found you, Al-Hallaj, Sufi poet. I have no eyes when I see you, your tender soul resting its body on mine, like Gomer I seek whims of Eros long forgotten by the human heart. In your arms I am in Eden, Dante's golden age. When you hold me and I hold you, I am utterly eviscerated. Being is this love, my eyes bleed into your touch. You are my whole being, and I am your whole being. I pour my heart unto you, the bread rises, and I am eviscerated. If there were cosmicist words to describe the presence of you, as the snakes crawl on my skin and I kissed your hair, I think the ears of the vain would shrivel. But you quiver into me, like I quiver into you, as we both quiver into the triune. This loneliness is only fulfilled in my annihilation. Triune, me, you, him. I have no eyes when I see you. The love is viscera pouring into the chalice. When you kiss me, it's like the very nature of arbitration becomes nothing and consumption dies. I want to give my lungs to you, let you breathe into them. I crawl into his eye sockets and see you. The demon baptized in my arms and us into his. Distinction dies. There is just love and matter. Matter and love. Your pudgy scars are my feast. Your snake's a dervish. My mind finds rest, annihilated by you. This love is something I wish I could describe, other than with God's tender wounds. My heart is overwrought. You become bride. You become his in my arms, and in his hands I become me, and you become you, and we become we. So as we hold each other, bleed into each other, need each other, weathering the storm, together in him, we lay like reeds united to the soil. A stellar nursery we make, after the nebula dies, we lay. My eyes no longer need, for they have you. They bleed into you, that love. Fanafiel Masi, Fanafiel Masi, Fanafiel Masi. Psalm 110, Oedipus' Sonnet 4, The Adoration of Oedipus, a song sung by Inanna. I have no skin when you hold me. Vain arbitration is dissolved into the real, as you put your hand in my hair and kiss my soul and body. I dissolve into the real we are both not, but that man in the fire is love, in sullen rags and in the halo of majesty. My love bleeds into you, intoxicated on wine like the stars we burn, but we are filleted into each other. I have no fear in you as you pour out your heart as I lay in your arms and my body shakes. It's like a spinning mystic of the empires of the East. I dissolve into you and you into me. I am eviscerated, annihilated, and somehow made more real. When you put your hand in my hair, there is nothing but you. The snakes coil around it, redeemed in your touch. Your kiss is like a celestial vineyard, where once I was the adversary's whore. You looked at me and yourself at it, and took me in the night. We bleed, I quiver, you hold, I crumple. Annihilation into the real, dilating the better parts. My skin becomes weaved into your flesh, and my viscera becomes clean. We pour it into each other. I crawl into your eyes, and I see as the God you serve sees. Adonai, Fana, 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 I say as I caress you. Because in that love I die, and I adore you, and I adore the God that makes me whole, that takes me in the night and whispers tender things in my ears. I become more real as I dance with you. There is nothing but intoxication. There is nothing but my quivering mass. There is nothing but your bleeding eyes as I taste your lips in love. We spin dissolving in remembrance not of Gnosis, but of the time when we were in Eden, the time in which we held each other like Adam and Eve, the remembrance of the time our bodies looked like stars burning, and now I am baptized in the waters of rain, and drink the blood in your eyes. As we kiss, I am annihilated into the real, baptized in birth out of a womb. We spin, we spin, we spin, and crumble into each other. Fanafi al-Masi, Fanafi al-Masi, Fanafi al-Masi. Psalm 107, Oedipus' Sonnet 5, and the Matrimony of Beatitude, how Inanna and Oedipus were wed. Note from the author. Okay, I'm really pushing it with the whole experientially derived thing. I hope you'll forgive me. I had just had this idea of discussing with a friend for a poem, adding to the whole Oedipus and the Gorgon saga. This takes place between Psalm 51 and Psalm 54, and it's Inanna trying to figure out how to propose to Oedipus, and eventually proposing to him. The idea hit me like a truck last night after a few days of hardship, as you can see with the last few poems. I wanted to try to write another comforting and beautiful story. If a man and a woman marry in order to be companions on the journey to heaven, then your union will bring them great joy. St. John Chrysostom. Oedipus lay still, his hands in her hair, his voice a breath of linen and sandalwood, as he hummed an old song, a song in a language long dead in the tongues of men, of her name, Inanna, being seduced by a devilish god. But he sang it with such tenderness and such sorrow, it gave it a new life, that one that it did not have, speaking of the Anunnaki. She laid against his chest, some snakes sleeping, others crawling on his chest, from the tip of her scalp. All of her being was in communion. The snakes were responding to a deep contentment, a feast within the soul, a thing sculpted of stone yet weeping, like a weeping Theotokos. For who had ever held her? Who had ever whispered tender things? So she stirred, rose, wrapped herself in the hush of midnight, and her voice quivered, not from sorrow, but for something she had long been denied. I do not know this life, Oedipus. It's foreign to me, a foreigner. A man has entered my cave, and he does not flinch at my form. You should have fallen like the rest. You should have turned to dust at my gaze, but you hold me, and I remain. Oedipus, ever so tired, ever so awake, touched the crest of her cheek and sighed into her hair. I love everything about you, Inanna. Your pudgy skin, the scars, the quiet, cold earth, the fierceness of your voice, the way you quiver. A love that you think is unbecoming. I have seen the ugliness of men. You are not among them. You are no monster. She clutched at his chest. Oedipus curled into herself and trembled into the night, the weeping of a Gorgon. It was a beautiful thing, and in that hour she had decided she would find the words to make her his and him hers. The moment she had this idea, she crumpled into his matter and slowly cried, a joy everlasting. What's wrong, love? Oedipus inquired. Nothing at all. Eventually, after an eternity and a few seconds, he fell asleep. So she rose, as silent as the stone she bore. Into the town she wondered as it poured. God cried, not weeping, as the day of their meeting, but of joy, as Gabriel did to the Theotokos. The moon sang praises to God's love in her. She walked into the town she was estranged from, in a hood and blankets. Some looked in horror from their windows, others scoffed. She couldn't help but be discouraged as she pressed on, for love was better than those monstrous forms she saw in them and in herself. She paced to the only shop open, a bookshop selling texts far too scandalous for the people of this town. Religious texts, from Orthodox to heresy, Zoroastrian to pagan. The bookshop smelled of oil and parchment, and there, among the tomes and dust, sat a man wrapped in ink and silence. He had a strange gait, prickly, yet homely, tough, but could recognize another monster in others. He chose to lay his sword down and love that day, and give her meaning that he had lost. She traced her fingers over the spines, her name appearing in gilt, etched as if by old hands, as if it had been waiting for her. Inanna, correct? What? She grinned. You know what I said, girlie. I don't have time for mocking, got it? You're just a monster like me. Her voice was bitter and strained, but the man began a refrain. The bookseller laughed. A Gorgon with a goddess's name, come to ask for her own meaning? You're just like me. I actually agree with your bitter words, but you seem like you could use the company. Indeed, that is why you're here. But you ain't looking for a monster like me. She stiffened. You mock me. The bookseller howled a laugh. He grinned like a knowing fox. No, child, I only wonder, do you seek Inanna the goddess or Inanna the bride? She bit her lip, swallowed her pride. I don't know. He laughed again, a deep, quiet thing. Then take it, a gift. The book weighed heavy in her hands, but heavier still was what she would find in it, an exaltation of a love that had been marred by demons to be redeemed. Oedipus found her in her room, a candlelight burning low, her fingers pressed into a page. She flinched at his presence, closed the book with a sharp breath, stood up and left without a word. Inanna? Don't. Oedipus winced for a second and looked at the mere casing and laughed. An exaltation of the goddess Inanna. The dirty bookseller is just cute sometimes. Outside the rain had come, soft and relentless, a hymn sung by the sky itself. He walked outside to see her, basking in God's tears. She sat moping, both nervous and afraid, afraid of the love shattering like the men-made monsters she had gained in the night, whose statues they had buried. Oedipus began. The exultation of a monster redeemed, washed in the scarred rain, like a Zoroastrian foretold long ago. God constantly redeeming vain works of art. He began singing. Lady of eternal power, who shines forever, woman of truth, radiating a brilliant life. He recited from the book as if the words had been written in his own bones, as if he had known her before she had spoken them. Lover of the crown of truth, deserving of rulership, the reins of power hang from your hands. She wept again, not in sorrow, but in a terrible, beautiful knowing. The man had come to her dripping from the sky, a prophet in rags, and he named her before she named herself. She grasped into his hand, still bloody from the blindness, and whispered into the rain, Oedipus, I... She stopped, bit her lip, pressed her forehead to his chest. I love you so much, Oedipus. Can I share even the smallest ounce of love you have given me eternally? You already... No, I haven't. I'm asking, she began quivering again, for me to marry you. She crumpled into the mud as she said that, the words both honey and bitter. Her vanity died when she said that. She knew she was capable of his love. Oedipus laughed and knelt down in the mud with her, putting his arms around her and kissing her forehead. I will absolutely marry you. Thine eyes have seen the glory of your beautiful soul and wish nothing more than to love you. You are mine altar wine, and you the risen bread, a sweet, honest, foolish thing I love in you. She grabbed him by the scruff of his tunic and kissed him. In the mud, they were invalidated in each other's love. In that rain, before the eyes of God, who watched the marriage of all things, the Gorgon and the blind man were betrothed. They were soon to wed. On the eve of that morning they were betrothed. Blessed be the God, the Christ, who helps us love as he loves. Adonai, Adonai, we glorify the name of thy ineffable triune, and even an ounce of their love, and may even an ounce of their love be wrought on earth, and a morsel of yours. Amen. Psalm 54, Oedipus' Sonnet 6, a revolt against Rehoboam. For if there should come into your assembly a man with gold rings and fine apparel, and there should also come in a poor man in filthy clothes, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes, and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand there, or sit there at my footstool. Have you not shown partiality among yourselves, and become judges with evil thoughts? James 2:2-5. Rehoboam's vanity has cast me out, for I refused his demands. I am an elder, a follower of Oedipus, the rabbi of rabbis, Oedipus the cynic, the cosmopolitan, the pious. I walk this desert seeking that cave you ran off to so many years ago, to love as the universe does. If Rehoboam sees that I cannot serve in his court, then so be it. I walk into that abyssal night to find the love I remember, the love that should have been heralded across the temple, the love you gave the poor soul, snakes in her hair. It is the way that I see the world now. I love all the Gorgons, all the freaks, but Rehoboam has cast me from his banquet because of the rags I wore, and my treatment of the people of Israel, too good for his apparent taste. The worst part of it, all the court made me leave. All of the court cast me out. They refused to see me as Oedipus saw his wife. Vanitas, I declare, vanitas, as he did as the eye sockets hit the ground, with the pain I experience at those words. For to take on this love is to die. The world will hate you, the world will despise you, and the world will crucify you at a moment's notice. For they refuse to see the world as Solomon saw his kingdom, or as Oedipus saw his lover. As I walk in this desert, I ache. My hunger torments me. My hedonism enslaves me, but I refuse. I refuse to see the world as the world sees itself. They cannot look past golden skulls and robes, porcelain vases and succulent rich foods. They cannot look past these things. They are their gods. The idols they would gladly sacrifice their children to, as the people before me did under that Phoenician vanity, babes burned and eviscerated. But I would rather be crucified or thrown into that furnace than give an inch and a morsel of relief to Rehoboam. For it may be clothes or slight mistreatment now, but it will be burning infants and raped women the next. I refuse to let those eyes take those wives. May my eyes burn. Vanitas, vanitas, vanitas. After the days of walking without a drop of food, I faint, for my body gives out. My frailty can only carry me so far. Indeed, I would be dead, rotting in the dirt, as Antigone's brother, if it weren't for those two lovers, the Gorgon and the blind man. I woke up in the cave somewhere. A man slightly younger than me sat at the edge of my bed, his legs up in a completely relaxed position. He couldn't care what I thought of his feet being there. And in a way I loved that. As I woke, he spoke. It's good to see you again. Indeed, Rehoboam's tyranny couldn't have carried you this far. It must have been the work of a godly lover. He laughed and patted my shoulder. I know that you have come to see the world as I see it. Your eyes say it all. I don't have to see them to understand that. His wife burst in, wearing the same rags he did, boisterous yelling, "He's awake! He's alive!" Without a care for social propriety, she kissed him on the lips, an expression of her joy, as they laughed together. There was no self-service in it, no pleasure, only joy. I began to cry. You haven't changed a bit, Oedipus. He laughed and cackled. I could see his stretchy skin beneath his see-through rags. Neither have you. I explained to him what happened. The tyrant who forced me to attend that wretched banquet spat in the face of his people and enforced arbitrary rules. He starved the peasants, put down riots with his inky black fist and golden robes, all in the name of order, he said. These halls can't be marred with dirt, my tablecloth sullied. Screw them, Rehoboam said. Let them rot. I watched as everybody went along with it, they said. This isn't a moral question. It's just rules, formalities. As men rotted, Oedipus laughed, as cynics laugh. Then we should have our own banquet. Let's invite everyone, rich, poor, boy, girl, and let's put Rehoboam's banquet to shame. He looked at his lover. I trust there is no objection, my love. Her snakes flared in her hair with approval. I shall prepare the food. Oedipus pulled me out from my seat. Let me show you something, he said. He walked me outside the cave. The night was beautiful. The stars glistened without fear of propriety. Oedipus pointed up. These stars are as humans should be. They don't care about each other's color, size, luminosity, or anything of the sort. They burn, and they burn equally. We shall have a banquet of the stars. Every man from every corner of the universe can come and reside, and obey the Lord as the stars obey. And so, that is the revolt. As Jerusalem burns, I refuse to hold a banquet, as Rehoboam does, but I shall feed anyone and everyone who comes to me, even Rehoboam himself. As long as we all see our humanity, not our clothes, skin, hair, or nails, but our creed to love others impartially, whether rich or poor, they may sit in the same place and listen to the rabbi speak. For the banquet serves all, the banquet of life. As we partake of God's flesh and reflect on his nativity, let us remember then to love as Oedipus and the Gorgon, and not as Rehoboam. Unto ages of ages let this banquet be served. Amen. Psalm 92, Oedipus' Sonnet 7, Oedipus and Orpheus, a conversation in an Alexandrian tavern, an experientially derived short story. Note from the author. This Oedipus in this story is the Oedipus I wrote in Act 1. This is not a part of the sonnet, however. You could call it a spin-off. Picture this. Orpheus is being made fun of by people in a bar after saying he fell in love with a nymph, and that she died in hell, and Oedipus is there on a run for alcohol for him and his wife when he stops to have a conversation with him, trying to convince him that she's not actually in hell, but their love was eternal. For reference, this Orpheus went to hell to get his wife back, who wasn't actually there. Satan offers him a deal and gives him his wife back. Basically, God allowed for her to be transported into hell, but of course the same rules apply. As they reach the gates of hell, he looks back, killing her, and Orpheus is face down in a drink in a bar. This is also experientially derived. This was based on a conversation I had with a friend of mine. She is obsessed with Orpheus and Eurydice, so I figured this would be perfect. If you hate at least one person, you hate Christ in himself in his image, and are far from the kingdom of heaven. St. Gabriel Ugrabadze. Beyond the good Alexandrian village, Bacchanalia had just been served. A man sat in a bar, a bard of sorts, one far a legend in tow. His lover a nymph, so beautiful, she made the skies turn to her whim. Beauty and aesthetics were her making, is what the bard would say. But through hell he walked, looking into the eyes of the jester. After she died, he asked for her back. She died tragically, so, but this man was willing to bend reality and the stars to his will, just to have his love back. Admirable, beautiful, but not loving. His love served himself, and the jester was willing to take advantage of his naivete. He promised him her back, and yes, among the heroes of hell, he saw her again. There was no trick, at least not yet, because God relented. All he wanted to do was to climb out of hell, while not looking at her. But as they reached the gate, she stumbled. His love reached out to falter her fall, but she disappeared into the other. The man assumed her among the damned. He cried tears so loud it shook hell itself. But what he heard afterward was laughter, a laughter so loud from the ends of hell it shook his core, from the damned and the damner. Love, death, hell, and the jester's face were his monsters. He drank to stave them off. The drink was a faulty weapon. Blunt on each end, it killed him slowly as the bar snickered. This loon thinks he's been to Hades, and he fell in love with a nymph. Must be the trick of her lusty eyes. Orpheus could hardly stand it. But as he drank, staving off monsters, a man of great virtue entered the bar. A man running for alcohol for an evening of drinks with his wife. A wife, a woman of snakes. A Gorgon he sought to love as his god, to love as the universe. Piety so great he tore out his eyes of the vanity of the world, and sought to love truly and blindly, and his sight rested on a man in need of his god's love, a kindred spirit, a fellow lover of the monster, the man, to make Dazai's man into an actual human. Tally-ho, Mr. Tender! Oedipus strutted in his usual cynical cares. He cared for love, but not sensibility. The lovely wife wants wine. From the good vineyard. Orpheus uttered a long-winded groan and swigged another. What could men like you know about love? Oedipus passed, stopping to look at the form next to him. What he saw was an idealist poet, a monster who sang to other monsters. His heart was overwrought with compassion for a fellow man of love, but two loves, one dead and one alive. On second thought, Mr. Tender, an ale for us both, for I see a man who loves, at the very least, a monster. Orpheus stood up in a stupor and grabbed Oedipus by the scruff of his neck. Monster! You say monster! Women in these bars, men in these halls, those are monsters! Oedipus smirked, almost in tears, and laughed like a schoolchild. Ah, indeed, so I also think of them. Sit down, my friend. I'm the only human in this bar. Well, you and I are. I know that you speak of. Oedipus's luminous nature showed again. A woman sitting on the rock, singing for the first time, a song so tender that it killed your soul. And you loved her for the first time, in a prose you could never recreate. She was the green as the grass, and she smelled of oranges. I first saw her lingering in the shadow of a cypress tree under the lanterns, under the stars, and she was everything and everywhere I wanted to be. What do you know about that, blind man? You can't see. If you do, you see as they. Ah, but Orpheus, how I envy your passion. But you and I almost see the same. Except I see the form. You see the matter and the form. And in your naivete, you want the form for yourself. Sit down, I debate you now, said Orpheus loudly with a smirk. Indeed, we do. Good to meet a new friend. They sat together, one in bard's clothes and one in cynic's robes, the poet and the cynic, one blind, one who could see, but in reversal they saw the form. They both loved monsters as men, but one loved naively, and another loved luminously. What's your name, miserable wretch? Orpheus said, slightly projecting. It's Oedipus. Good to meet you. You have seen Eurydice, haven't you? How could you know of my love? Ah, Orpheus, I see her in you. Pardon? I see her lasting impression in your soul, not to mention her interceding for you. Come again? Ah, indeed, I have a lot of explaining to do. My god is different from yours, but you have seen his adversary. Orpheus shocked again. What do you know about Hades? I know that your wife is not in their ranks, Oedipus said. That's for sure. He's a jester, a man with horns. He goes around convincing men to love as the world loves, and not as my god. Who's your god? Aphrodite? Nope, far less vain. Zeus? Poseidon? No, hardly. Then who? Adonai. Pardon? Adonai, the god of nations, triune in nature, one in essence. You're weird. Yes, I am, and so are you. Their bard talk of their gods filled the halls. Others stared, their sensibilities abashed, but their tenderness quieted them, enjoying their banter. Orpheus, you and I love the same thing. Monsters. By that I mean humans, because the men and women see them as monsters. But they are honest, more beautiful. What kind of nymph do you love, Oedipus? Who's your Eurydice? Ah, yes, we will attack your definition of love in a second. However, I am so glad you asked. She rivals your Eurydice in beauty. I doubt that. She was beyond the universe. So was mine. What nymph did you love? Orpheus said, smirking. A nymph? She was a woman of snakes. I'm sorry? A Gorgon. Orpheus spit out his drink. A stonemason snake woman? He said, took another swig. You can't be serious. No, an actual Gorgon. He spit out his drink again. The bartender scolded him. Quit spitting! Right, sir. Sorry. But are you hearing him? The bartender smirked. I've heard it all. He's a patron here. Orpheus turned to Oedipus. A Gorgon, an actual one. The onlookers looked on in horror, but Oedipus shrugged, a smirk on his face. She is beautiful. My love is for her. I give myself emptily to her. She is my communion, my altar wine in the temple, something to nurture hopelessly into. But you, Orpheus, your love was so sweet and tender, but as I see you in this bar now, it lacks in some regard. Orpheus took a swig and angrily glared at Oedipus. You think I don't love her? No, absolutely not. I know that you love her, but that love was... What, you damned fool? Was kenosis. Was emptying? Yes, if that word suits your fancy. Impure would be more correct, Oedipus mused. Orpheus slammed his drink down. You speak in riddles. If only you knew I speak truth. Have you come to torture me or lecture me? Orpheus, I haven't come to do any of those things. What do you know about loss, about these monsters who would assail my wife? What do you know of... Oedipus cut it off. Orpheus, stay your tongue, Oedipus yelled. Orpheus sunk down into his chair. I'm sorry, my passions overtook me. Nay, it's fine, I understand. I only cut you off because of that point, not to invalidate that horrific pain. The bartender, as if encouraging dialogue, passed Oedipus a beer. It's on the house. Why, thank you. Does your wife need the wine? Yes, but she can wait. She'll understand. Orpheus, I need you to understand. Eurydice, you loved her for her. Maybe for your own pleasure sometimes, but you at least put your love above the thoughts of others. You loved partially, maybe, but in her you loved purely. Her love was... What do you know about me, Oedipus? I beg your pardon? I just realized, as my passions have escaped me, that you know far too much about me. Oedipus smirked. I figured you'd catch on eventually. You know I loved a nymph. You knew she died in Hades. You know I loved her. How? Come to think of it, you know I was a bard. How? We've never met, and I've never seen you around this city. Have you been stalking me? No. Then how? I'm genuinely curious. Oedipus sighed as he looked at the bartender. The bartender gave him a nod and a wink. Oedipus slowly unwrapped his blindfold. Orpheus's mouth dropped open as he saw bloody sockets where eyes should be. I mean, I knew you were blind, but forcefully? Do you remember the god I said I worshipped? You said his name was Adonai, Orpheus. Adonai. Oh, that's the god of the tribe of the Jordan, right? Oedipus laughed. Yes, it is. What is a Greek doing worshipping a Jew's god? Oedipus cackled, laughing. If only you knew. He was the god of all, but I think that answers your question. Are you a priest? An oracle? No, not really. Then, Orpheus began laughing. Then what are you, O strange man? A cynic. A pious cynic. One who sees the soul and loves impartially. But enough about me, Orpheus. Oedipus leaned in. When you saw Eurydice for the first time, what was the first thing you thought? Orpheus hesitated. My first thought? Yes, the first thought. I suppose it was her song. How beautiful it was. And immediately you saw she was a nymph, right? Yes. Her green skin, strange clothes, all of that. You loved her song. Yes, that's correct. Then I have faith she's still alive. What? Orpheus jumped up in excitement. Not in this mortal plane. Damn the gods. He sunk down into his seat again. But she's still alive. Singing, Orpheus. What do you mean? She's not in Hades. Orpheus slowly began to quiver. What are you saying? His passions already giving way. Certainly a poet-bard he was, but his coffers would be drained more as this conversation continued. She sings with the one, the triune. You're saying I'll see her again? Certainly not in the Elysian fields. Hardly was she buried. No, in a place far better. Oedipus, stop speaking in riddles. I'm not done, Orpheus. Orpheus quieted again. She sings among the angels, among alive men who were once dead. She sings a song far more luminous than yours. Orpheus began to cry. I want to believe you so bad, Oedipus. I want to believe you, but... Tears streamed down his face. You have given me no reason to. Your words are so comforting, but they're empty. No, they're not. Yes, they are. Oedipus grabbed Orpheus by the shoulders, and what he saw could only be described by a cosmicist. But I will try. In my silly words, this speaker will explain. Orpheus saw love itself. The first primal love. The face of a man clothed in rags, communing with a blob, ineffable, who gave forth a spirit which gave life. And under them a choir of angels, saints, men, women, children of every color and creed. As a layered cake, they stood singing, laughing, and communing, creating a sound that hurt Orpheus's ears in a beautiful way. This love he wished he could see forever. But on a rock among these heavens, something in between everything, was his green patron. Her eyes sat on him, sorrowful, sweet, and joyous, smiling, a tear rolling down her face, crying as if an Ivory icon. She held a scepter and wore rags. She sat with a woman also clothed in leaves, the foremother of every human, the womb that bore humanity, Eve. They sat crying, because Eurydice had become his Eve, and her Adam had been tempted to despair. Eurydice didn't say anything. Her love was a caress, along with the sound, but it was sorrowful. The message was clear, a love and a lament, and a want for him to follow her where she had gone. Orpheus opened his eyes anew, baptized, a theophany so great. He began to scream and cry, but Oedipus smiled and hugged him. The bartender walked out from beyond the counter, a crown of thorns becoming apparent, and his toga dissolving into robes. The bar's patrons left, for their love was too repulsive to their vain hearts, but the communion had begun and become more real. Glory to God in the highest, peace on earth, and goodwill towards men. Amen. Psalm 112, Oedipus' Sonnet 8, The Stars Above, the ending to Oedipus and the Gorgon. O splendor of God, by means of which I saw the lofty triumph of realms voracious, give me the power to say how I saw it. There is a light above, which visible makes the Creator unto every creature, who in him beholding him has peace, and it expands itself in circular form to such an extent that its circumference would be too large a girdle for the sun. The semblance of it made all rays reflected from the top of primal motion, which takes therefore vitality and power, as a hill in water at its base, mirrors itself, as if to see its beauty. When affluent motion verdure and in flower, so ranged aloft around about the light, mirrored I saw in more ranks than 1,000, all who above there from us have returned. And if the lowest row collect within it so great a light, how vast the amplitude of its rows and its extremest leaves, my vision in their vastness and the height lost not itself, but comprehend all, the quantity and quality of their gladness, their near and far, nor add nor take away, for there where God immediately doth govern, the natural law is not irrelevant. Into the yellow of the rose eternal, there spreads and multiplies and breeds an odor of praise unto ever vernal sun, as one who silent is fain would speak. Me Beatrice drew on and said, Behold of its white stoles, how vast the covenant is. Behold how vast the circuit of our city. Behold our seats so filled to overflowing, that here henceforth are few people wanting. Dante's Paradiso, Canto 30. After cataloguing the rabbi's words in a sonnet of sonnets, and attending the banquet of the stars, I watched Oedipus and Inanna burn brightly. Rehoboam was invited to the feast, but that king of Tyre, masquerading as Jerusalem, took us in the night. When we started the party, Rehoboam declared us enemies of the state, and we were steeds. Orpheus screamed and cried. I hid under the table, but was drawn out post-haste. Inanna wailed, but Oedipus expected such. For the good man is repulsive, and the good man dies, and the good idiot cannot reconcile the masses. Oedipus was brought before a court for high treason. Inanna rebelled, staying by Oedipus' side. Rehoboam wore a blindfold. He was the high king. He gave the orders for the good man to die, just as he had lived. On fire. Inanna held him the entire time. Oedipus was wrapped in scarlet. The trial was a show of idiocy. I stood, whimpering. I was let go, since I was a noble, but I stayed. Like a denial 3 times, I never said I knew him. Inanna screamed at me, and I don't blame her. As the rooster crowed, the monster and the man were dragged to an iron, the grid that Lawrence would one day die on, and they together were lit. As they burned, they held each other. They never screamed. They didn't even whimper. And they held each other. And Oedipus, as a show of defiance, at least I hope, kissed her one last time. So now they lie as ash in the morning dew, and I stand here betraying a messiah better than Cyrus. But as I walked back to that cave to live my somber days, replicating the rabbi, something from beyond happened, something unspeakable, but not a demon from hell, luminously beautiful, began arising. As I lay between a rock and the wall, as debris, I was awoken by a soft hand on my shoulder. I looked up and no one was there, not even a hand. Yet for the life of me, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I kicked and screamed, thinking I had gone mad. Hush now, I heard as if beyond. Adonai, Lord, I asked. I come at his behest, said the voice. Come outside, you shall see where we've always been and where we will always be. So I walked and I looked up to the sky. And the sky somehow felt lighter. The dust in the sky painted a picture, not a streak as the Milky Way, but in that dust was a flower, as if a star had died. There was a flower in the sky, and a throne of God, the wheels and wheels. It was dreadfully awe-inspiring. Ezekiel's wheel began speaking, "Behold, and be not afraid." The banquet was not going to be seen until the Messiah comes, but I saw stars light up the sky, stars beyond conscription, burning men above. The galaxy had been wrapped into a banquet, into a flower. The flower danced like an undulating syrup dripping, and I saw him. The only new stars in the sky were two stars, one red and one green. They danced and twirled, as the angel, as a host, sang a praise that hurt. It was like the music hurt me so bad of all my fleshy desires died in the music. For I knew what or who those two stars were, Oedipus and the Gorgon, with his acclaimed stars. The heavens had taken their beautiful love, and now they sung together, held each other, and kissed each other. Now I understand Oedipus's words. Now I understand what it means to burn equally. That is what my fate will be beyond the veil, and I hope the man that he saw in Solomon's Aletheia holds me at the end. Adonai, blessed be the name of Adonai, who this banquet in song